I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, audience members. If you're here to speak to the board, please sign in right over there. If you'd like to sign in just to let us know that you're here, go for it. Otherwise, no worries. We are going to move on to announcements. Does anybody have any announcements? Nope. Yeah. All right, Superintendent Stuckey, the Leads Award.
It's my pleasure. Tonight, we honor Mount Angel School District students for excellence. The Leads Award exemplifies the very best of what our students offer to their peers, their school, and to the community. LEADS, or L-E-A-D-S, stands for L, leadership, contributions in and for the student body or the school and or representation of the school in events. E, effort, short or long-term improvement in individual practices. A, achievement, unique skills the student represents for the school or demonstrates in the school. D, diversity and inclusion, contributions that increase practices of inclusion for all students in the school and the school district. And S, service, contributions in and for the community and or the school. Tonight, it's our pleasure to recognize one student from each school who has demonstrated one of the LEADS characteristics. Each student stands out as a model of excellence for others. Tonight, each building principal will share with us what is unique about the student. And if we could begin with Mrs. Brendan.
Yeah, Austin, come on up. Everybody, this is Austin. She's our LEADS Award winner for the month of April in the category of effort. So her nominator says this about her: Austin always gets back up even when she's feeling down. Little asterisk I'm gonna add to: when she falls in basketball, every joint hits the floor and you can hear it. And while you're doing this, she has jumped back up and is down the court. Amazing. She puts on a brave face no matter what. She's a great leader during schoolwork, making sure everyone is doing something and that the work is getting done. She's kind and caring to anyone she meets, and she always puts effort into anything she does. So please join me in congratulating Austin Garrison.
Congratulations.
Picture time.
You want to say yeah.
Wait for another picture back there.
Mr. Taylor.
I was a little nervous there for a second because I know that they were both of the Dumnovs were running at our track meet right now. So I'm so happy. So you might recognize her. I don't know. I think it was a Heritage Elementary student. So Raisa Dumnov. Oh, let's start with Buenas noches y a ver. Dobry večer. How'd I do?
Good.
Okay. Raisa Dumnov consistently demonstrates a fantastic work ethic, persistence, and genuine interest in learning. She takes pride in her work and maintains high expectations for her own performance. In math, she has been consistent with not only high achievement in test scores, but steady growth in her learning. This year, she is representing Mount Angel in Pentagames, and we'll talk a little bit about that a little later. In class, she sets a positive example for peers in her actions, showing both respect for both teachers and peers. Raisa would be an excellent recipient choice for the LEADS Award this month. And that was written by the math teacher. Congratulations.
Yeah. Congratulations to you. Mrs. Bridge.
All right, we have Duncan on up. This is Duncan Klein. You don't have to say it. I'll say it all. So this is what your third grade teacher, Mrs. Swinberg, said about you. It says, I will nominate Duncan Klein for the Leads Award. Duncan always shows leadership in the classroom by paying attention to what we do and how things operate. He quietly supports his classmates by being a role model and answering questions. He also takes the lead by assessing what needs to be done in the classroom and helping out even if the task is not his job that week. I can count on Duncan to give his best effort toward achieving third grade goals and being the best citizen that we can be. Way to go, Duncan. Good job.
Okay, we have our Leads Award winners right over here to take a picture with the board. Oh, yeah, sorry. Oh, well, we tried. Yes. Thank you, families, for coming. You're more than welcome to leave if you would like or stick around.
Congratulations. Thank you. Chauffeurs driving hiring. Chauffeur is going to come. In 2 weeks, I think. Maybe I can.
All right, moving on to the JFK High School leadership. Unfortunately, Joan wasn't able to be here tonight, so he did send his report, and I'm going to read it. For this month of April, leadership, the primary agenda has been packed with planning for future assemblies, prom, which is this coming Saturday, and of course, the graduation party for seniors. They're also helping prepare for Doernbecher Week in the middle of May. They have activities like bingo night or the fun run made in order to raise money for the treatment of a student for FFA. They have gone recently to the state convention last month, and they have had great placements overall and had many newer members who qualified for state this year, setting new records for themselves and for the FFA district. FBLA, on the other hand, has recently competed in the state convention, of which 10 of our students went on to qualify for nationals and are discussing with their advisor for future information on who will be eligible to go. And that's all for his student report. Thank you so much for listening, he says. All right, moving on to our agenda. Looking it over, I would accept a motion to approve the agenda as is or make changes if needed.
So move to approve the agenda.
Okay, got a second motion and seconded. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Moving on to the consent items. We have our second reading for two policies in there from last month. And if it looks good, I would accept a motion to approve the consent items as is.
Move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay. Motion, and do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Director Brendan, second. All right. All in favor? Aye. All right, moving on to reports. I don't see any licensed or classified reps in nor online. Okay, thank you, Jill. Administrator reports. All right, who'd like to go first this week? Mrs. Brendan, you want to go? Okay.
Good evening, board. I've submitted my report. I'll hit on the highlights, but of course, feel free to ask questions about anything you see in the report. Something I'm just adding to that I want to make sure it's good news you know about. Okay, so under academic excellence, our PLC work took a big, like a big infusion of effort and energy with a group that came and did a half day, guided us through projection map development, all the way from where there isn't one created to there is one created, because we have people all along the continuum there, and just their expertise. It's educational excellence that was also used here at the elementary school. Their expertise in being able to expertly guide the staff from step 1 to step 2 to step 3, and then give time and be able to work among teachers answering all of their questions, was really added a lot of, I don't know, just vibrance to the projection map work. That is tier 1. That is what we do for all students. So it helps us be clearer about our grading. It helps us be clear on our syllabus. So we're really building here, and that was really exciting. And it was time well spent. We'll spend more time on that work on May 5th, given their feedback that they'll give on May 1st. Educational Excellence does a really good job of not just dropping professional development and walking away. They do a great job with the support after. So very excited about that. In Thriving Students, I want to highlight attendance and highlight that attendance is returning to old patterns. So I think last year was a really huge increase in improvement, and what I see now is alignment with where we were at before. So I think we just had a really great year. And of course, I'll keep trying new things to try to get those numbers up more, but we're falling back into the same patterns. So wanted you to be prepared for that. But also under Thriving Students, and I didn't get this added, we were awarded MAP grants from grants that teachers turned in. So 2 different teachers got $500 each. I thought that was really awesome, and it's such a good way to help teachers feel seen and their work endorsed by our community. So just hooray for them. In engaging family and community partnerships, the big work we're doing right now is assisting students in awareness and support for applying for local scholarships. We do all of the standard things, but then also Mrs. Mraz and I do things to try to customize the message to make sure. And it's just funny how students and even parents, I guess all of us, think scholarships and think college. And that's just not true with scholarships anymore. Scholarships can be used in any kind of ways. And so trying to help people not get shut down when they see the word scholarship. So yeah, we're just continuing to work on that and break down those barriers. When students do learn that they're awarded a scholarship, we celebrate that. We show other kids. You know, I dragged a freshman boy into a room where Isabel Burning was getting this great big scholarship from OSU. And I said, you can do that too. He's like, how much money was that? I said, it's $40,000. It's $10,000 a year for 4 years. It's $40,000. So that's a lot of money. I said, yeah, start coming to school, sir. So it's just such a really good way to show our students who are up and coming what can be done with some effort and focus. So just helping them understand what that looks like. Last that I have is an update from Safe Schools and Departments. We did take a tougher stance on students with unexcused absences, and it was just we really gave it a good go. And we saw 2 things. There's disproportionality in the data that was not something I could stand for. And there was overrepresentation of one gender and ethnicity. And the system couldn't be supported with our existing staffing. I mean, it took me 5 hours a day just to do my part. And that was after I made it really, really efficient. So we'll still watch for other ways to help students understand the consequences of not coming to school or missing classes. But in the meantime, I think I didn't finish a sentence there on your report. The counselor is working with a small group of students on their unexcused absences, and it is making a big difference for those students. We looked at the data last week, and it's something to celebrate. So just wanted you to know I want you to know the failures as well as the successes. So that was a failure, but we're turning it into a success. Questions on anything else in my report?
You have less kids in school, like 6 or something.
Indeed.
What's the deal with that? They just are not coming anymore, or they just dropped out.
We know what all of them have decided.
Okay.
So they're not just disappearing. They're
Well, I'm sure not, because you're pretty diligent in making sure you know where all your kids are.
yes. One has definitely opted into GED.
Okay.
Another, without the list in front of me, I'm sorry.
You don't
It's
need,
like
you don't
I
need
just
to go into
the number.
detail. You don't need, you know.
The number 7 is in my head, and when I made the list with Miraz last week, and then went over it with Beth also, I said, "What are we not doing? Look at these students. What are we missing?" And they're like, "We killed ourselves to try to keep them going." Mental health supports is something that we're.
So is it like a 10-day drop? They don't show up for 10 days, or they just don't show up,
No.
period, or?
These are usually what we have going regularly with those families,
Okay.
or the individual parents or guardians is communication, regular communication. So that sometimes that's an in-person meeting that happens monthly. So we have those going, and then we make a plan, and then the next month we meet, see how the plan's going, and then the next month we meet and see how the plan's going. And eventually we just have to decide. We either need to go into a 5th year or GED. So like one family just has some patterns that we couldn't overcome despite all of our efforts. And they've made a decision to prioritize the mental health of one student and to go online with another.
Okay.
That's an example. Another's gone to GED. One is dropping out because of health issues, but her plan was to get a GED anyway.
I appreciate everything that you're doing, because it's a lot of hard work. I kind of figured it's kind of hard to kids that don't believe in school as something that they need to do, or.
I don't think that's the case.
You don't think so?
No, looking at our list, these are students who have other needs that are beyond the scope of what we can offer.
And it's a matter of the traditional route is not the right route for every student with complex issues.
The social pressures that come with being in school.
Is there and this is way off, is there an
okay, I was hoping you would ask about
not here, I don't think JFK has it, but alternative ed for kids like that, or is that something, just wondering?
It's a conversation that I want to have at admin, because I've learned through just a variety of situations and really trying to customize school and make it work for different students' needs. I've learned some stuff, and I want to know how else I can apply that so that we don't have to shove students into the traditional models of attendance. Attendance is the big one. If we can account for attendance in a different way, kind of meet their needs a different way.
Yeah, that's
I want to talk
really
with admin. I want to talk with teachers about how can we creatively still work within the boundaries.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Wouldn't it though?
It would just be wonderful.
We can do it.
Thank you for
Sure.
your hard work.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Brendan. Go on to Mr. Taylor.
Joe.
Yeah,
Okay, so I want to start kind of in the middle back. I'm going to talk about Pentagames. So we took, for the first time since 2019, 9 students to a math competition. Teacher had never gone before, was brand new to her. 3 groups: algebra group, which are 8th graders, 8th grade group, which are taking 8th grade math, and 7th graders. Again, never been since 2019. We took 2nd overall. This was down in Staten. And there were, I think, somewhere between 7 and 8 teams. And we took 2nd overall on all the teams, never having done it. We didn't practice. We didn't get ready. We didn't know what to expect. So huge. So this is the team here. Mr. Arndt went from high school, you'll notice that many of them have their ribbons out. So 7th grade took 3rd overall, 8th grade took 2nd overall, algebra took 3rd overall, and we as a group took 2nd overall amongst all the teams that were there. We had many firsts in heats. I was getting Kevin was sending play-by-play through Aaron to me, and I was sending that on the staff as we were going through there. Hey, we just got a first in heat number 2 for algebra. We had students that were Russian, were Latino, white. We had students from high socioeconomics. We had students from really difficult backstories. We had students that were very aggressive and competitive. And we had students that really did not want to be there. And when I say that, I mean really, really, really did not want to be there. In fact, one of them, a young lady, told me as I was chatting with her at lunch, my mother is making me go. I said to her, so I've experienced this before at Valor. And a young lady said, I really don't want to go. And she came back and said, you know, there was that last final question that we could have won it all on. And I knew the answer and I didn't raise my hand. And I said, well, that's a really, really good lesson to learn. And I said to this young lady who really did not want to go, I said, I bet you will come back and you will say, I still don't want to go. And I am still really glad that I went. And I spoke to all of the participants there. So huge, huge kudos to Mrs. Wacker, Mr. Arndt, but really to the students. They didn't know what to expect, much like other teams that had been there for years. They had not been prepared. And they did wonderfully. Now, the one individual, if you go to the next slide, if you would, please. So this is Jesus. This is Jesus Solis Valtierra. Jesus was in my intervention class in the 1st quarter. He was there because he needed a little extra help. And in the end, he scored so high on his, and we used pure scores of iReady My Path. And he was in the top 3 and invited to go. He took the top slot of all 8th graders. When he got back, he, by the way, didn't go to class. He got back about a half an hour before the end, and he was just walking around campus with his trophy.
I love it.
I don't care that he didn't go to class. He deserved that moment. So good. So that's Jesus, a wonderful, wonderful young man. I'd like to talk just for a second about math and kind of where we are with math as well. So at the beginning of the year, we took our first diagnostic. It was within the first 2 weeks of school. We had 11% at the beginning of the year with a projected 19% with typical growth. Mind you that the Oregon State average was 29% last year and the MAMS was 26%, and I'm staring at 19% with typical growth going, okay, we got to fix some things. By December, we were up to 23% with projected growth of 28% again, just a percent underneath the state average for the prior year. And as of March, we were at 29%, meaning if we took the test tomorrow, we should score 29%. And with projected growth, typical growth, 31%. So we've made some really good strides in math. Now, just a little bit of a caution. This is a new diagnostic. It's our first year, so we're cautiously optimistic. And also a caution, SBAC is also just a single data point as well. We've now taken iReady Diagnostic 3 times, so we know what it reads, and we know how it reads, and it is guiding how we group math together, how we do intervention, and other things in the building related to math. Now, what has worked? So first, My Path, or iReady, so a quick anecdote.
So the winner of the completed lessons, which was over the holiday vacation, had gained 52 points. He started below grade level in 2 subcategories. He is now well above mid-year on grade level and had the second highest diagnostic score in his grade. He is now on track to challenge the algebra class. So my path does work. Now you may say, okay, Jeff, you had that competition, but has it stuck? Well, last week, 59% of students did 30 plus minutes of MyPath. Remember, we are not using MyPath as direct instruction. This needs to be either at the end of class if you've got 5-10 minutes, or needs to be done at home. So this is extra, this is above and beyond the normal instructive day. So the second one there is intervention matters. So one 8th grade student who was slightly below grade level at the beginning of the year went through a 9-week intervention. He gained 63 points on measurement and data. So math is split into 4 different categories: measurement and data, algebra, geometry, numbers. So on his measurement and data score, he got what they call max score. That means you scored as high on measurement and data as you can. And in geometry, he scored at grade 10. Good. So intervention matters. Those little pieces and parts matter. The 3 individuals that went to 8th grade Pentagames were all in my intervention class. So all of them started needing a little extra help. They all ended by being the top 3 scorers in the 8th grade, and they all 3 went to Pentagames. Master schedule change. So we did a master schedule change, which included a half a year of Math for Life. That is the answer to the question, when am I ever going to need this? So we've made those 3 changes this year. So we're cautiously optimistic that we will do decently. Oregon State average, maybe a little bit better. Again, we don't know how this compares. It's our first year. But we've seen some tremendous growth in math in the building. And I'd like to thank my teachers, particularly my math teachers, but I will say we get into PLCs and the language arts teachers are saying, how can we help? What can we do? What vocabulary will port over from math into other disciplines so that we can support you as well? So hopefully, knock on wood, some good news. I think it's good news anyway, because SBAC is just a single data point in it. So. Attendance, 93.62%. We've got Russian Easter coming up here. Attender is at 85.09%. Both of those are cumulative. And since we've just got, I know it's hard to believe, 8 to 9 weeks, depending on how you count, till the end of the year, I would assume that both these numbers will be pretty much where they're at right now. Spring conferences, we had 79% attend. The highest was 88% or 6th grade. A few points lower than I had hoped, but we did call every single family and invite them to conferences personally. We are seeing a number of parents taking that week as kind of a nice way to get a vacation in, and that's great. We certainly have offered that for them. We had a University of Oregon Jazz Band assembly. We have our 3rd quarter awards assembly coming up this Friday. We have a corn drive to support the Mount Angel Family Resource Center. We're in the midst of track. In fact, we had our home track meet this evening. Baseball and softball. Baseball won 20-1. It was a pretty lopsided game. They were playing 2 at softball when I left, so I'm not sure what went there. Outdoor school is back. I've not had outdoor school since, again, 2019. I had an opportunity to go 3 days, not overnight. Went out for one of the days, had a blast, beautiful location, great instruction, ton of fun, catching fish, lighting fires, learning how to help people in the wilderness if they're injured, orienteering, using a tarp for protection from the elements, and some great conversations. Really the ability to see kids in a very very different light. There are some kids that it's difficult for them to shine maybe academically or from a sports perspective. You get them outdoors and they were the teachers of the group. So it was great to see them in that environment as well. We also were participative with the high school, both high school and middle school worked together for the PLC instruction on our projection maps. That's what I have for you this evening. Questions?
Questions?
Where was outdoor school, Mr. Taylor?
It was about, let's call it 15 miles that way. In the Scotts Mills, it has a Scotts Mills address to it. It was at a Boy Scout camp.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Scout.
The Boy Scout.
Yeah. Other questions?
I appreciate you doing taking our students to the games and beginning to expose our kids to those types of activities. And I think it's just wonderful. Thank you. It's good. Proud of our kids.
Great, thank you. All right, Mrs. French.
Well, I have to first make a comment about the sunshine. It just makes me so happy. It's so lovely to have it out and about. I will start with, of course, academic excellence. You can see I talked about a data dive that we're going to be taking part in on Wednesday. The Guiding Coalition, we've been looking at the iReady MAPS data, and so have teachers. They've looked at their individual classes, but now we're going to have them look at a whole school and then go back into their own with their grade level partner. We are going to have them take their MAPS, which is the reading portion, and we're going to have them track their own students in this. I brought this just to show you this kind of graphic organizer. And so they're just to really think about, where are your students? How are they doing? Where do they land in these quadrants? And and I listed what those were. So you look at, high growth, high performance, high growth, low performance, and so on. And what we really want to focus on is that growth. If you're high growth and you're high performance, that's great. That's the ultimate place you want to be. The most concerning place your student could be is low growth, but high performance, because that tells you they're capable, but they're not growing. And so we're learning to really work with this data. And then what are you going to do about it? So here on the tracker or template, it says, how can I promote growth for these students? And how for each quadrant, they're asking kind of a different question. So we're just really being mindful of our individual students. How do you provide for them? How do you hone in on where they're at? So that's what we're up to on Wednesday. Any questions about that?
I do.
Yeah, no, you go.
So the lower growth, higher performance. So I, as a teacher, looked at my math or reading and I didn't have any growth, but what does that mean to have higher, they need?
Means a student can, so I interrupted you, but I know where you're going.
I'm kind of confused on how low growth and higher performance.
It's really focusing on, so when we first assess students, when they first came in, you've got that baseline data. So maybe they came in as high performers already. But so now you're going to do your second assessment and you see the growth isn't much. They're not learning a whole lot, but they came in high. So that's what so that's what you want to be very careful of. They're high performer. They all need to grow, whether they were a high performer coming in or a low performer coming in. You know what I'm saying? So that's what that means. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
What I love about this too, and your question kind of leads to this, is it unmasks things that might be hidden in your data. You could have these high performers. They walk in and you're thinking, oh, this is great. My data looks great. But what you really want to look at is their growth. Are they growing? Are they learning further? So that's what that's about.
Is there like an expectation that the growth, I mean, how are teachers? I mean, you can grow, but you can grow a little bit.
You're right about that.
You can grow medium or,
Yeah.
you know, so what is it, you know, all the
Exactly.
kids grew, but they're still like,
And I will
not
admit,
much.
when they come in as a high performer, they're not gonna, that is a hard one to grow, right? But they should grow something. If they come in, what the most exciting, Jeff was kind of leading to this with iReady, and we're really gonna use maps with this. But iReady does this thing where it's, there's first a growth goal for the kids, but then there's also this target growth goal, and then they can accelerate it also. And so the thing you want to celebrate the most is if you have a low performer come into your class, and then they jump up and they're at grade level where maybe they weren't before. That's great growth. And that is where you're going to get to see a lot of that growth. But the high performers, you may not see as much growth, you know. But yeah. So when you ask, like, what's the expectation? What's the goal? So we're just exploring that right now.
So, you know, because teachers could, or people could feel happy with, everybody grew in my class, but they're still way below grade level. You know, they didn't grow that much.
Oh, right.
So that's where,
right, exactly.
You know.
And the goal is to get them at grade level. Especially if they're coming in as a low performer, you need to see big growth or they won't catch up, right? So that's what this whole activity is about. All these questions you're asking, us as a teaching staff will be asking and discussing and pushing ourselves to think about that. So,
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so also our after school program starts April 16th. So this Wednesday, we have an after school reading program. And this is going to focus on our early readers, K1, 2, and we invited third grade as well. And we braided funding. This is from the early literacy grant, but I also had some title funding. So we braided it so we can do 2 teachers instead of just 1. Right now we have 21 kids registered. We were hoping for 24. So we're still pushing, maybe we'll get 3 more. So then I'm going to drop down and you'll notice I have a lot of activities built into the month of April. And that tells me next year, I need to set up next year a little bit better and spread out the wealth a little here. But this is kind of fun. Thriving students. Man, our kids love soccer, but it's also the most challenging time of the day. They kind of battle. So right now, Kelly put together an awesome slide deck. How do you play soccer? And the kids are all learning it. The 4th and 5th don't need it as much as the younger kids do. And then Marty is building us 2 soccer fields instead of 1. We're having the fields painted. We have new nets on order. I don't know if I ever told you, last year my daughter came and helped me kind of work with the kids. This year that's not going to happen. My daughter laughed. She said, Mom, every time the kids run near you, start screaming. Well, I'm not as good at soccer as you are. So there you go. Anyway, and I'm bringing that up because we are trying to ask the high school kids to come and play. You know, if their schedule's aligned and they could come and walk over and kind of referee, that would be kind of a neat opportunity. Mrs. Stadley is working on that for us. So, soccer always, or spring always brings those kinds of activities. Engaging family and community partnerships. This is kind of a list, but we also have so this week we have kindergarten roundup. That's Thursday. We're looking forward to that. Last year we had such a strong showing. I think we had 50 families. I remember talking to Christy and Rachel and we're like, uh-oh, it was pretty big, which is awesome. And we want to continue that. Then the following Thursday is our STEAM math night. And we're underway right now. We're making plans to show off. Our robotics team might do a demonstration. Each classroom teacher will be hosting a different game that pertains to the standards that they're teaching. We're going to have pizza. I may have already said that at the beginning. It will be a great community event. And then lastly, I talk about a Mount Angel Public Library. They did such a neat, I don't know if anybody got to go see that museum display that they had there. Did anybody get to go? It was open to the public, but our school was invited to go. We walked down and it was STEM related, and it was also associated with our with Indigenous people of our area. So it was really very entertaining, but also very interesting for kids. So any questions, anybody? Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Gordon. I see you're online. Thank you for waiting.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for letting me participate by Zoom. I'm assuming you have a copy of my report.
Yep. Mhm.
Awesome. So I think similar to what Mrs. Brendan had to say, I have some highlights, but also kind of bringing you some of the real stuff. We continue to tackle disproportionality as I started off with. So just got information a couple weeks ago about, it gets published as what's called a weighted risk ratio, which is really how much is the likelihood that certain students might be identified in a specific category as other students. They look at a variety of factors. I think, as most of you know, they look at discipline and they look at placement. The area that we have continued to struggle, as many of you know, is with our Hispanic students in the area of specific learning disability and being over-identified. And this is an area that we have been looking at for many years. At one point, our ratio was close to 3 times for Hispanic students compared to non-Hispanic students. We've actually made a lot of growth in that area with the work that we've been doing. We have a team of folks who've been meeting diligently for about 4 years now. We meet every week and we've been reviewing data and designing interventions and using improvement science and short cycles of improvement called PDSAs. Kathleen has been heavily involved for the last year and a half with that work. Our latest data, I think, was at 2.02. So it's really hard to move that needle. So we've made a lot of progress. We are not there yet. But we are on our way. I know Kathleen and I are really trying to get some teachers to present to you next month on the work that they've been doing. So wanted to give you an update that the new data came out. I don't have the published data to share with you. I will next month. So we've made a lot of progress and it's still a problem. So we'll have more for you on that. Similarly, the cyclical monitoring where, we reviewed all of those files. We're still, in process. I did meet with our district support specialist on Friday. They agreed with everything that I submitted. They agreed with, they didn't find anything more. And so we'll be getting our due diligence report. And the way that then that comes back is that we'll have individual files to correct, and then we'll have systemic things that we need to do. So whether that's professional development or if there's like just specific standards, then meeting one-on-one with teachers so that we can move through how we can just make our system better. Our overall scores are really high, so I feel really good about where we're at. But we will have the official report back middle of May. But otherwise, I feel really good that, what we submitted, they saw the same thing. Yeah, otherwise, I don't have anything else in that area. Mental Health Month, are focusing on that and reducing stigma is in May. And you guys have always been really supportive of that. So I included some information there. We're also super thankful for our behavior specialist. He's only here 2 days a week, and we wish that we had like 15 of him. He's been doing a lot of hard work in our district with the time that we do have him. His name is Akane Ogawa. So if you ever are in the district and have a chance to see him, I don't know that I've actually like formally introduced him, but it seems like with kind of, focusing on mental health coming up next month and it ties in nicely with like social emotional learning. He's been a really great asset. The way that we have ended up contracting with his services is last year and the previous like 8 years, we've had a full-time school psychologist, Emily Usher, and with her leaving, she was able to fill both the evaluation side of things and the behavior side of things. Most school psychologists are not able to do that. And so we had to kind of bifurcate that role. And so that's how we have now a school psychologist role that does evaluation eligibility and then behavior specialist. And so anyway, just wanted to make that plug if you don't know that. As far as engaging with families, we have an OHP night coming up. I don't have the flyer yet. When you work with other agencies, it has to go through like a lot of hoops to get like all of their stamps of approval and their logos on it. I want to say it's on like the 24th. Anyway, I'm waiting for their flyer to come on to go through like their communications team. But essentially, we are going to be offering a session in English and a session in Spanish so that families can come and either learn how to sign up, or if they have it, they can learn how to utilize all of their services better, like within our community, because we're seeing that as a big barrier to attendance. So both their physical health and their mental health, and how we can utilize all, like just really maximize those services. And so we're holding that with our community partner, Fostering Hope. And starting to plan for next year too. Once Catholic Community Services gets moved over, they'll be able to support some more parent education as well. And then I just, overall, I just kind of put that at the bottom there. A lot of times we try to bring you like quantitative information, like with counts or percentages, things like that. But I also wanted to add in some qualitative information. A lot of, and I'll just speak for myself, I'm sure the principals would concur. A lot of our time has really been spent with more and more families where it's hard to quantify. There's a lot of unique and challenging circumstances. I am really grateful that they feel that they can come to us, and they're really vulnerable and in a really tough place. We're having to be really creative with our problem solving. And I think that is really, again, it's like, how do I put a number and share that with you guys? But I think the timing right now is really important to share that with you as we face, how do we manage our money really well, as we go into May as Mental Health Month. A lot of our time is spent with families who are, we're really just trying to be creative and think outside the box. And those are not quick 5-minute phone calls. Those are not a quick handoff to somebody else. And I think one of the really beautiful parts about being in a small community is the ability to build relationships and see people through that journey. I don't know how to like put a number on that in my board report, but I did want to, at least just kind of honor that, people are hurting, and it is an honor to serve everybody. It's also really hard. Well, I also know that you guys are really supportive. And, having been here to see a variety of different board members, just thank you for supporting us and doing the work that we do.
Great. Thank you, Erica. Any questions for Erica? Okay. All right, budget report.
Alrighty. Okay, I'm gonna do the lunch fund first. Figure out how to get this tool out of the way. Okay, so for March, a pretty lower month, and that is because of the February being a shorter month, and so we only got $30,000 in federal reimbursement, $7,400 in other, and then that $50,000 transfer is the amount that we budgeted to transfer this year. You'll see as I get down below that we are going to have to do more of a transfer this year. So you'll see that come to the board next month for an authorization to increase that amount. And then expenses, March is just a normal month in terms of salaries and benefits. You can see that we are trying to trend down in food supplies. It went down quite a bit over last month, not quite as low as I wanted, but we're heading in the right direction. So total revenue for the month, including that transfer, was $88,427, and then total expenses was $47,870. So right now we're trending in about a negative $25,000 ending fund balance. Last year we transferred 80,000. What I have projected for next year is 80,000, and it's kind of spot on with what we're projecting right now. So that might be our number until we can get more reimbursements in terms of like federal and get more kids eating to get those reimbursements. So any questions on this one? Okay. And then general fund. We did see a little bit of a spike in interest this month. That's because right now we have some in savings building up for those last 3 months payroll. So we're reaping the rewards right now of getting some extra interest. So that's why you see that number go up. But it'll slowly go back down when we pay out the extra salaries coming closer to June. And then we got our county school fund in our first payment of that. The restricted revenue where you see that 11,000, that is for subs that we purchase subs through we'll have an ESD. We pay a certain amount to them. And there are some subs that are coverings for specific reasons where we can charge that sub to like an SIA grant or a title grant. If they're going, let's say, to professional development, we can use some of that title to pay for them to go on that, and we pay for the sub as well. So that's where you see that transfer of $11,000. We just do that a few times a year. And so that's that. And then you can see our actual for state school fund. And then I did do transfers this month in. So those are like athletic fees. We transfer a portion of that into the general fund, as well as so admissions gets transferred between general fund and athletic fund. And when I was reviewing this to get ready for today, I noticed that I had transfers still in April. I did it a month early. So that's misconceiving that's not going to be there next month. That'll be zero. So just wanted to point that out. So total expenses, or excuse me, revenue for the month is $826,333. And then expenditures, a normal month in terms of salaries and payroll, you'll see that big amount in transfers. I did all the transfers last month, really just trying to prepare for what our ending fund balance is going to look like when working on the budget. So those transfers are to like the bus fund, our athletic fund, the food service fund, the various programs that our general fund supports. And so our total expenditures for the month was a little less than 948,000. So right now we're trending at a little over 1.6 million in a month-end fund balance. My goal again is to get us to 1.5, and I think we will get there. We know that it may drop a little bit from the state school fund coming in a little bit less when our enrollment, ADM comes out, or we have to report ADM in April. So we'll know what those news numbers are, here in the next month. And then we'll really have an idea of what that remaining state school fund will look like. But I really feel confident in that we should be able to hit the 1.5 goal. So any questions on this report? Alrighty, so I have, I said it got included in the board packet this month. I did a new little report on basically the status of what we know today in regards to funding from the state and what we're planning for budget. So finishing up 2024-25, most of this is information that I shared last month. I did send out the email to cut off spending as of April 30th. we do allow little things, you know, like graduation or, you know, emergency type stuff, but we try to get everything wrapped up and paid for by April 30th to really give us a strong ending fund balance projection. Like I said, yes, last month we spent down about $400,000 of the fund balance, which we were planning for doing with the recent bargaining that we did. And then ADM, none of that's, everything's changed there. And then looking towards 25-26, the information at the top is the information I provided last month. We are projecting an increase of about $500,000 in state school fund over what we budgeted for 24-25. It's actually going to be about a little less than $450,000 over what our actuals were that we received or are going to receive this year. General fund expense increase, you know, with the budget, we've been trying to, you know, move some things around and try to consolidate where we can. And so last month I presented that we were about a 7% general fund increase. And right now we're looking at about a 5%. So there's still a gap, but it's not as big of a gap as what we presented last month. So that's good. We received our Willamette ESD local service plan information. We purchased services through them, like the psychologist and the behavior specialist that Erica was talking about. We've purchased our legal services in the past from them. A lot of our things to support our students. We also purchased slots for some students that we aren't able to service here in our district. So we do a lot with them, and we get an allocation every year. It's based on ADM. It's based on the state school fund. And you can see that our allocation this year increased about a little less than 39,000 or about 10%. The total local service fund expense, though, is a little less than $190,000 increase or 20%. They had probably the highest increase in their costs since I've been here. I know it's not a long period of time, but there was a lot of increases, some as high as like 57%. And so when things are going up that quickly for services that we need, we can't get them anywhere else. The difference is coming out of our general fund or our SIA. And so because of that, then we, you know, lose other things. And so
I can ask a question about that.
Yeah,
Is that increase that they're charging us mostly going to like salary and benefit increases and that they've got to cover? Like, why such a giant increase in some of those?
That's a good question. I mean, they do present, I can share it with you. We do get a report from them that explains why they did increases, and salary and benefits is something that they include in there. I will say that this is off the top of my head, but their bargaining last go round was like a 5% salary increase. So there's not like, I mean, there's a correlation. I mean, I know that there's a lot more expenses that go into running an ESD than just, you know, these folks that they're hiring. But yeah.
Are we purchasing more? Like, instead of having this individual work in our district 1 day a week, and now we need that service 2 days a week, is that reflected in that or not? So it's just kind of a status quo of what we're purchasing.
Yes and no. So like, for example, right now, we're thinking about increasing one service, but we're decreasing another service. So that's kind of status quo. We also are planning on eliminating a service with them and going to an outside entity because we're able to, you know, so I would say that as a whole, this is pretty status quo. There were a few areas that we had to increase in special education department, but not the amount of the $189,000.
I can see other districts that use the Willamette ESD having a hard, especially when the ones that are in a tighter budget or deficit than us.
Right. And from what I understand, there are some districts that are going to try to hire these folks in-house. Unfortunately, we can't afford or necessarily need a full-time psychologist. So, you know, that makes it hard. And there's advantages to having an ESD manage these folks because then we're not having to manage the HR piece of it. You know, if they don't work out, it's our problem because it affects us, but it's not our problem in terms of having to fix it and deal with the HR piece of it. So there is some advantages there too that you're paying for. Any other questions on that piece?
Thanks for the answers that you can provide.
Yeah, and then, and I will share that because I think it's good information to share so you can kind of see why their increases are. I'll email it out. And I also wanted to note, we had a few unfunded state mandates that are affecting us. Last year, we talked a lot about this unemployment. They're projecting that this is going to affect districts more this year just because more publicity has gone out, more word has gone out. And so they're expecting that districts are going to face more unemployment requests for the summer. So we'll see. We lucked out this last year, but you know, with more publicity about it and surrounding it and encouraging of it, it could go up. The state required 2 new credits for the high school for graduation. So personal finance education and higher education and career path skills. You know, working in banking, the personal financial education, I think is amazing that they're doing this. It's much needed. But unfortunately, this came with no extra funding. And so we have to find these classes within our current staffing. You know, there's bigger districts who said, well, they're not going to offer an elective. They're just going to move that over to some, you know, to that teacher. But we don't have that luxury. So that has definitely been something on our minds this budget season on what can we do to be, you know, provide the best options for our high schoolers, but also meet these graduation requirements and not, you know, because we could ask for a waiver, but you're just kicking the problem down the lane. So those are just things that are on our mind that we're talking about when we're doing the budget.
Christy, I wanted to add to the unemployment discussion.
Yes.
In public sector, don't think the governor has signed it. I'm not sure where it's at, but it looks like our Oregon legislature is going to expand unemployment benefits to public employees who are striking. And that's it. That's all I'm going to say about that unemployment category. And that is also an unfunded mandate. Yes.
Does anybody have any questions about what that, okay. So other important information, this is all new information, or updated information, I should say. So when I presented the numbers last month, it was based on the current service level, or the new number that the governor had decided was what we needed to do to keep our current practices going. In past years, that number has always been skewed and has always been like a couple years behind. And so we were always, as districts, were always fighting for more money because we knew that the current service level really wasn't what that was. So there's 2 numbers floating around right now in the legislature: current service level and then the governor's recommended budget. And so the numbers I'm going to provide are based on those 2 different things. So SIA, we already talked about this last month. It's $771,000. It's a decrease of $2,500, and that is the same amount whether the governor's recommended budget goes through or if we go based on the current service level amount. Just to highlight this, SIA pays, you know, I would say 2/3 of that is going to pay for employees. So if you think about our staffing, our benefits, salaries and benefits have gone up 6%, and then our allocations going down. That's another thing that comes out of general fund. So high school success allocation. This one does have a different number depending on the current service level and the governor's recommended budget. Current service level, it's at $218,000, which is a little bit of an increase of $13,000, or the governor's recommended budget is actually only an increase of $2,000. But on the plus side of that is if that is a little bit lower, the governor's recommended budget for the early literacy allocation is actually going to go up quite a bit. So that's a great opportunity. We know we need that in our schools. The only thing we don't know is that if that allocation is increased that much, what stipulations and parameters are going to come with it, because we may not get to use it the way we want to use it. And so that's not going to help us in the end if we can't use it for staffing, right? So just wanted to note that. And then federal grants are still uncertain. Last month, you guys asked a really great question of what our title grants and our IDEA grants were for this year. And so you can see those numbers. That's the amount that we get from those various federal grants. I would say about a half of that is going to staffing. So again, and it's a scary unknown, and we aren't going to know for a while about that. Other things to note, House Bill 3499, which we've done really great things with over the last 3 years, expires. So that's a decrease of $125,000 that we've been getting every year. And then obviously we have no ESSER. And so all of these things, affecting the budget this year. Okay, so I talked a little bit about this. So balancing the budget, this is what Rachel and I have been meeting a lot about. We're having to utilize current staff differently to fit emerging critical needs. We have a lot of stuff going on right now that needs our attention. And so we're having to look at the way we are staffed differently and how we can staff things differently to fill those needs that are really, really important. We are trying to avoid adding FTE, like total FTE, to fill the high school credit mandates. So we are not, our plan is to not have any electives decrease. We're trying to get creative on how we can make that work within our own staffing. So be able to offer these things without increasing our total overall FTE, but also not eliminate any electives, which we know are really important for our high schoolers. I use a little more aggressive funding calculation of employee benefits that does free up some money. There's, a little bit of risk there because, it's nice to have more of like an average rather than actuals when you're budgeting, because the averages do give you a little bit of a buffer. But this is what we need to do to balance the budget this year to make sure that we can continue to do the things that we're doing. And then we've already talked about this, decreased non-essential services with Willamette ESD. So there were some things that we had to make a tough choice to discontinue, and we'll have to do that internally instead. So I think that's it. Any questions at all about that?
I appreciate the clarity.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, it's been not only the clarity, but the transparency too, with the staff, the information that went out, and that you are opening up a question and answer portion for them and making that available to them. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that we get some folks that will come and ask the questions, and then if there's things that we haven't covered, like, so we can share that information too, because I don't know what to share if people don't ask. So I'm really hoping that we get some turnout for that.
All right. Thank you, Christy. Yep. Appreciate it. Superintendent Stuckey.
Hey. Good evening, Chair Fowl and directors of the board. Tonight's topics include student enrollment, as always, transfers in and out, as well as current enrollment, integrated planning update, more information than you probably would want to know tonight, and you'll get more next month too, and an update on the English language arts materials adoption. So starting with transfers in and out, zero. So stable. We also have a nice little pile of in-district transfer requests for next year that we're getting ready to look at the numbers of process to come in. This is always really good news, right? Our enrollment numbers, as have already been talked about tonight, are down. They continue to slide down. So we're really looking forward to hopefully being able to approve as many in-district transfer requests as we can without flooding classroom size. Any questions on either transfers or enrollment? Okay. Integrated planning update. So integrated plans are required every biennium. And so the last time I presented information to you was 2 years ago. It was a new process at that time. And it is a plan that is provided to the Oregon Department of Education. And in preparation for the upcoming biennium, MASD will be submitting an integrated plan, and it's due by April 30th. The plan must be shared with the community and approved by the board. And the plan will be shared with the board and the community at the May 12th board meeting. And just to be very clear, we can provide evidence of a scheduled meeting in May to go in with the April 30th application. So I just wanted to make that clear that yes, they do look like they conflict, but we're good there, we're covered. Any questions thus far?
Is this your second integrated plan?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the integrated plan 2 years ago when it came to life was really meant to take initiatives and programs from the Oregon Department of Education, look at what was common between them and what the common goals were, and try and integrate all of that into one plan. The things that we look at: high school success, systems to improve graduation rates and college career readiness, student investment account, which has been talked about quite a bit tonight, actually, to meet students' mental health, behavioral needs, and increase academic achievement, reduce disparities for student focal groups. Continuous improvement planning, which is not a grant that we receive, but it is something we are always working on. That initiative will never go away. Career and technical education is braided into high school success, but it is also an initiative with a lot of force at the Oregon Department of Education at the state level. Early indicator and intervention system is a grant that we are not part of, but we continue to do the work of this grant by looking at data collection, analysis, collaboration. So it's PLCs and response to intervention at work. And then finally, attendance, the initiative of Everyday Matters, embedded across all of the programs that is integrated. Any questions on that? So there's an immediate next step, which I'm taking tonight, and that's to share with you needs assessment information and providing an opportunity for feedback or input. So the local needs assessment was done over the last year and involved quite a few things. The parent caregiver experience survey, not just 1 year's worth of data, but 2. Student experience survey, also 2 years worth. Staff experience survey, the same. And most importantly from those surveys is the rollout of how we get the feedback back from our stakeholders about what would make things better. We look at the Oregon State Report Card that comes out every fall, our own school district scorecard, which we look at progress monitoring throughout the year through iReady, MAP, DESA attendance, and the experience surveys. And then we look at Oregon Statewide Assessment System data, or OSAS, or some people call it Smarter Balanced, or SBAC. So those were all put together. And the trends that were noticed, the students were very vocal and consistent. There's a lack of enjoyment in attending school. I'm saying it nicely. And they really want to see an increase in kindness and mutual respect amongst their peers. Parents and caregivers want to continue to hear more about positive and proactive things that are happening in the school for their child. And staff want to see an increase in transparency. And this one I find really exciting. They actually have voiced, we want to know what it is to be a culture of success. How do we establish that, and how do we sustain that? And how do we know that we are part of that? So those are the trends that we'll be writing to in the integrated plan. Oops, a few more. Academic achievement. We know there are still disparities. And even though Director Gordon tonight said that we're closing in on some gaps, we continue to see the disparities across student groups, special education, Latino, non-Latino English learners. And we also know that we are below state average in reading and math. Although we're gonna hit it hard next month. And then other trends that we know of, and you definitely have been informed about over time, attendance has dramatically improved over the last 2 years. Are there any questions on the local assessment, needs assessment information before I move on? Okay, so what happens next? Formal board approval of the integrated plan will take place at the next board meeting on May 12th. That will go to the Department of Education. After that is approved, then we head into kind of a negotiation of longitudinal performance growth targets, or LGPTs, in collaboration with ODE, and that takes place May, June. There'll be another formal board approval of the LPGTs in June, July, depending how quickly they get to our application. And then the grant application will be finalized August, September. Any questions on the integrated plan? More to come. English language arts materials adoption. Okay, by the numbers, 13 committee members, more than 150 hours of time committed from our wonderful teachers, 8 committee meetings, 8 publishers with 9 programs to look at, and 3 publisher recommendations, 1 for K-5, 1 for 6-8, and 1 for 9-12. That's a lot of work that went into this process by these dedicated staff members. So what happens next? Well, we want to make sure that the proposed materials are available to the community. So April 21st through May 9th, we will have that available at central office for any patron to come and take a look at, yourselves included, of course. I will present the committee recommendations to you, the school board, on May 12th. And also provide any requested follow-up information that you may want, and then obtain approval to purchase the materials. Special recognition to these fine folks who gave up every Wednesday afternoon for 8 weeks, whether the weather was good or bad, and sometimes it was really nice. They stayed inside and got the work done, and I'm so appreciative. Questions? Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Stuckey, for your report. Any board member reports? Nope. Okay. We can see that there's nobody here to speak public forum, right, Jill? Nobody online? Right.
Not online.
Okay. Nope. Okay. Moving on to action items. Angel School District design bid build services contract with PNC Construction. Information was in the board packet. We need to approve the contract. Before we do so, any questions from the board? Okay. There are no questions.
I will go ahead.
Okay.
I move to approve Angel School District design bid build services contract with PNC Construction.
Okay, I got a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Been seconded. All right. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Moving on to our discussion item, the Bond Oversight Committee report. Mr. Checkers, I'm assuming
I'm stepping in for Chair Shecker tonight. We had our usual OTAC report, which is provided monthly to the Bond Oversight Committee. We're on time, we're on budget, which is the important thing to know right now. The new business, there were 2 things. One was I took forward the concept of relocating the swale out back and wanted to get more information around the why it likely couldn't be done. So there was a really strong, good conversation about that, and I did learn a few things. The swale is there because that was a Department of Environmental Quality requirement. It would take about 18 months of design and permitting to move forward with that, and at least $800,000 up toward $1 million. So prohibitive at this time, but it's good to know that now. And there was also a really good discussion about, should we have a fence or not around the swale? What are the pros and cons? And was pointed out in the committee, which I appreciated, the visual of a toddler running into a coffee table. Now thinking about having a fence around there. The discussion really was grounded in, okay, don't have that, but have a bunch of water and rocks that can be thrown or tripped over, or possibly have a fence that is more rounded in nature. And so that's what they're looking at now. So that was the first point of business. The second point of new business was actually a walking field trip where the Bond Oversight Committee walked around this building and looked at the mock-up of the EFS siding. If it's still light tonight when this meeting is done, maybe you want to go take a look at it. It looks really nice. That was what I heard from everybody, not just my opinion, of course, but that it's looking really good. So that was the new business. And that's it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for reading that report from Mr. Stecker. All right. Anything before we adjourn the meeting? All right. Meeting's adjourned.